Jason Swenk from jasonswenk.com. If you want to find out more about this guy, check out that website and some of the incredible content on there, including a podcast that feels like it goes back decades because there is a hell of a lot of content on there. So that's jasonswenk.com. My name is Lee Jackson. I am the host of the Agency Trailblazer podcast. We also have Peacher. Do you want to give us your intro?
Hello, I'm Peacher Neri from Design for Geeks, UX and design expert.
Excellent. Jan, how about you?
And Cloudways Maverick.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. I'm a Cloudways Maverick too, and I run Virtual Summit Mastery and the WP Agency Summit.
As you can see, he also borrowed my t-shirt. And Jason, do you want to give us your little intro and a bit of history?
Yeah, Jason Swenk had an agency for 12 years and grew it up big, sold it. And then agency owners dragged me back, kicking and screaming, talking about and showing them the systems that worked for us so they can create the freedom in their life and in their agency so they can scale it a little bit quicker. So
that's awesome. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. That's scale your clients and grow your agency. And buddy, we're going to hand over to you. We're going to shut up and we're going to enjoy your presentation today. Folks, during this presentation, please do ask us questions. We'll all be keeping our eye on social media. We will also be asking some questions and no doubt interrupting Jason now and again, of which he's assured us that he won't shout at us if we were to do that. So we're all good. But please do ask questions. And if you're watching the replay, do still ask questions because we can still loop back with you later. Jason, over to you, buddy.
Awesome. You guys see my screen?
There it is.
Yep.
All right, perfect. Good. All right. So, well, I'm excited to chat with all of you. I need to tell you a little backstory. You know, I got my start by accident like everybody else just because one of my friends looked like Justin Timberlake, and we used to get in all the bars in the 90s for free. And what I did was I created a website called InShit, and it got really popular. And then I had a bunch of people asking me to do websites for them. And so I was lucky enough in order to kind of fall into it. And I was in kind of this solo stage where I was doing it by myself. And I think a lot of you that run agencies have fallen into this, right? You're doing it by yourself. And I want to talk a little bit about the stages because it's important to know where you're at and then what we actually need to do in order to scale your agency and scale the clients that you have. But I was in this like fun stage that I was doing everything myself. And then I realized at one time I was like, well, I want to get to the next level. And I go into what I call the team stage where I start hiring people. But what the problem is I'm at a point where everything's still funneling through me. And I'm kind of like the toll booth where all the decisions are in my court. And if I leave, even though I have employees doing execution, they can't make decisions, which is pretty frustrating. And I remember getting to a point at the agency, we were a couple million in revenue. And I remember looking at my bank account at the time, because that's how we did budgeting, not anymore, which might be similar or sound familiar to some of you. And going, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to make payroll in the next week or so.
I remember that nightmare.
Oh, it's just a complete nightmare. And I remember, chatting with, my wife, and she saw the constant ups and downs of running a digital agency. And she was like, well, why don't you just close it and go get a job? And I was like, that might be a valuable, option. And I remember going, so in the States, we have a really big company called NASCAR, and I remember them having an opening for the CMO. I remember interviewing for that because I was really seriously thinking about just shutting everything down, even though we had 20 people at the time. We're, multi-million-dollar agency. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just go get a job. And I remember them asking me a couple questions, and I think this is important for all of you to, ask yourself as well, because it changed our trajectory of going, what do you want to do every day? And what don't you never want to do? And so I went home and really thought about it. And it's a good exercise for all of you to gain that clarity that you need of take a sheet of paper out and draw. I don't know if you guys can see me or if you just see the screen, but put your fist on a sheet of paper and draw a circle around it. And then start with everything on the outside of that circle of all the stuff that you never want to do that you're currently doing now. And then once you do that through a process of elimination over about an hour, then focus on everything inside the circle that you want to do. And when I did that, I realized I don't have to go take a job somewhere. I can actually start transforming the agency into that and really getting clarity for where I wanted to go. So I needed to think about what was our North Star. So like, for example, our North Star at jasonswenk.com is really to be a resource I wish I had when I was running my agency, right? From the free content to the paid content to the communities that we do. And that's the North Star that everyone on the team actually follows. And a great example of this is, think about a couple years ago, I remember we were writing an article about the best conferences for agency owners to go to. And I remember my team wrote down total of 20, but on 3 out of the 20, I hated those people. Like, I was like, no.
I have a question. I did Agency Transformation Live, and my name's Lee Jackson. Do you hate me?
No, I love you. That's why I'm on here.
Just double checking. I was like, crap.
and so my team was like, I told them, I said, take it off. And they go, but is it a good resource for the agencies? I'm like, it is. Keep it on. So it actually keeps you true. And then also you have to figure out what is your personal core values and what do you believe in, because then you will actually start bringing on the right people. And I know what you guys are thinking. This is the foundational stuff that you need in order to keep scaling your clients, because if you don't have the right team in place, you're screwed. And so you have to make sure you don't hire your twins, but you hire people that believe in something that you believe in. And then once you have the right team on the place and you have that clarity of who my clients are, where do I actually want to go? I always use the analogy of, let's say we're on a boat from New York to London, okay? We're coming to visit you, but I don't tell anybody on my team, and I wish I had that boat. Actually, I hate cruises anyway, but it's a big boat. But let's say I have my whole team on the boat, and I'm driving, and after about 8 hours of driving, I go take a nap, and I say, come down in my quarters if the boat changes course. And if you've ever been on a boat, it changes course all the time. And so what happens is they keep waking me up every minute. And if I just told them where we're going, they could have made a course correction, or if they didn't want to go to London, they would just got on another boat. And so it's figure out where your agency needs to go, who you're actually serving, and then you can sleep and get that well-deserved rest that we all want. The next stage is really kind of transforming into that leadership stage where you're not the solo entrepreneur, you're not, in the team stage where your team can't really make decisions, but now you start bringing on people and they can actually make decisions without you. And so what I realized I had to transition when I actually did that sheet was I had 5 roles that I needed to really fall into. The one is I had to set the vision and communicate it off into the team. Just doing an exercise and saying, here's my vision, I want to be the best agency in the world, is total bullshit. So you really have to get deep and really have to have everyone behind you and communicate that all the time. The next thing I needed to do was coach and mentor my leadership team and show them how they can do that in the sequential teams again and again and again, depending on however many layers that you actually have. I also needed to be the face of the agency. And a lot of people actually push back on this and they say, well, then everybody's going to come to me. And the perfect example of this is Gary Vaynerchuk with VaynerMedia. I can promise you he is not on your account. He probably doesn't even know your account. And people know that, but they come because he's the face and they believe in what he believes in, and he's set a good team up. So it's not going to, send you down a path where you can't really get out of it. The next is assist sales. My good friend Ian Garlic always talks about, he uses this analogy of, let's say you go to the doctor's office and the doctor greets you at the door and opens the door for you and then takes you in, gives you the paperwork, and then says, let me see your insurance card, and scans it, and then goes into the room, takes your blood pressure, gets your weight, checks your height, and then, sticks his finger wherever and tells you what you actually need to go do. Have to give you that visual, right?
Thank you.
Well, you're going to lose credibility for the doctor, right? So you got to think, have your team actually run the sales, and then you just come in and add color. And then the last thing I had to do is understand the financials. Now, when you do this, I'm going to tell you, you're going to go through something that you'd be like, no way, I will never, is you'll be depressed, because what you'll realize is your agency doesn't need you for the things that you used to do, but it needs you to do the things that I just went through. But that will show you that you're in the leadership stage and you can actually scale, because now you can take off a month if you want. I take off in the summers. I don't do anything. I just, have fun on adventures in Colorado in the summer and just play, right? And so then when you come back, that's when you have scale. And the cool thing that's happened, outside of the pandemic, but to businesses, the cool thing that's happened in the businesses is a lot of agencies are getting so much business right now that it's actually taxing on them, and they're seeing where the holes in the boat that they need to actually fix. And a lot of times when you go leave for an extended period, you come back, what you need to actually work on. Now, the next thing, so you can, a lot of times go, how can I sell more to my clients? It's all about positioning, but it really starts in the very beginning. And I see a lot of times, like, here's a website of Huge. They're actually a pretty big agency. They do tremendous work, but their website, when you go to it, has a big H. I'm like, that's horrible. Or this one in Atlanta. All these agencies look like Me Too agencies, and there's no key separator, right? It's like, hey, pitch me your free stuff, and then we'll select in the RFP, which RFP really stands for request for punishment or request for proposal, or real fucking problem, right? So
I like the first and the last definition. They're the two best.
Well, I got a whole video on like 12 meetings for RFPs.
All right, I got to go find that.
But if you really want to sell more to your clients, you need to position yourself differently, and you got to tell a different story, and especially from the beginning. So a lot of agencies, and the agencies I just shared with you, and the big agencies, you can't model them because they've already gotten to there, right? So many agencies look alike because they copy the big guys and they think that's what they need to do. But what's got them there isn't what they're doing now. And the same thing with you, of where you're at now is the same things that you've done to get you here is not going to get you to the next level. And so if you position yourself as Batman, really that makes your clients Robin. And I always ask this in my speeches. I go, how many of you dressed up as Robin as Halloween? And usually it's no, but there was one person 2 years ago was like, I do. I'm like, okay. It's kind of screwing up my speech, but no one wants to wear those ugly green tights. And there's your DC reference, right? Or are they, which ones are they? Are they DC or?
DC.
It's DC.
Batman,
yeah.
Robin,
DC.
DC. Yeah.
There you go. I should have told you I had that in there when you guys said Marvel or DC. But what we need to do is you need to position your agency as the trusted advisor. You need to be Alfred. Because if your clients are coming to you to say, hey, I need you to go do this, well, you're just an order taker and you're replaceable. But if they come to you and say, here's a challenge I have, or this is what I want, then you can say, okay, let's dive into that. And they're looking at you as a strategic advisor. And it starts by asking the right questions. My uncle had the coolest job in the world. This is an F-14 Tomcat. This is the same jet off Top Gun that Tom Cruise flew in the first one, right? I can't wait for the second one to come out. And his job was to test out the canopy, which is the window that they look out when they're flying the jet, for bird strikes. And how you test out for bird strikes is you have a bird gun. You put in a dead chicken, I prefer dead chickens, and you shoot it at the canopy. And what they were having happen was they kept breaking the canopy. They're like, damn, man, like they say, put in these dead chickens into this chicken gun, which that would be a cool job, right? And they shoot it in the canopy, and they just kept breaking it. And they finally go, well, let's reach out to, the trusted advisor. Let's reach out to NASA. NASA wrote them back one letter, go unfreeze the chicken, right? Meaning your clients are not seeing through the trees. You can see things differently if you position yourself as a trusted advisor and you take on the right clients. That's the other thing too. That's when you're going through that clarity exercise. And then the next system really into, really training your clients, because I always like to believe that they're either training you or you're training them. And it's really starts on the first conversation. And so a lot of agencies, they jump off and pitch their retainer right off the bat. And they're pitching marriage right off the bat. And most people are going to say, no, I'm not going to do that. And what you have to do is build trust. And there's an easy way to build trust is you have to have this foot in the door offer, right? You have to have something smaller that's sliced off of your particular service, and then you kind of walk them through. So let's say back in the day, we had a foot in the door offer where we would do an audit. Now, I don't encourage audits anymore, or to call it an audit just because it's overdone. But we would go, all right, we're going to find all the companies that are spending over $10,000 a month in AdWords. And then we're going to call them up. We're going to say, hey, I noticed you're spending over $10,000 a month in AdWords. What we find with that is a lot of people are overspending and not utilizing it the way that it should be. And we offer a service, $2,500, in order to audit that and give you a recommendation. I had a client that did SEO, and they used to sell $5,000 a month retainers. And I said, okay, how long do you have contracts for? And they're like, oh, it's month to month, which if you're selling a retainer, a lot of times people do month to month because it's an easier decision for them rather than a big risky one. And I said, when do they usually leave? About 6 months. So basically they're making $30,000 every contract that they sign. I said, well, let's change it up. Let's think about how can we do a blueprint or a roadmap strategy session, high level strategy for $2,500 to build trust. And we position that in a way where they go, it's irresistible for them. They come on. And then what you're doing in that blueprint is you're outlining exactly what we need to do. And then I said, how long will it take you at this time? It was about 6 years ago. And we do this with all our clients now and mastermind members. I said, how long will it take you to show results? He was like, 2 months. I said, cool. Let's do a 3-month project so we have time enough for them to see results. We're going to charge $5,000 a month. So we're going to charge $15,000 for that. Now, while we're in the project, as soon as they see a result, then we're going to position the next offer. Sometimes you can skip over the bigger project and go right to the retainer, which we did. And we positioned the retainer at $87.50 for 12 months. So now every account that they come in, because of this right offering, is, they're making over 100K rather than 30K. And so if you start off small, you can build trust with them. And then you can go to the next project to solve that particular problem. They start seeing results, and then you can transition to the bigger thing. And so that's one of the easiest ways that I've seen. And it also positions you as that trusted advisor. Now, the other thing that happens is, let's say after you sell the deal, a lot of agencies, they have, the gongs or the bells, and they celebrate, right? Well, the agencies are celebrating, but the clients are not, right? They're going through buyer's remorse. Did I make the right selection, right? And they're thinking, because all of us as agency owners, we're focused on the problem, awareness, knowledge, comparison, consideration, right? And then, they purchase. They buy from us, they engage with us. What are we actually doing? And so once they become a client, you have to do a couple things. And this will actually allow you to sell more to them as well, because you first have to affirm that they made the right decision. An example of that I like to do, whenever anybody jumps in my agency playbook or online training framework or mastermind or anything, they buy anything from us, I always create a custom video for them. So I'm like, hey, Peter, thanks so much for jumping into the mastermind. I can't wait to, really introduce you to all the other great members in here. And I give them some advice on what they need to do. So I affirm that they made the right decision. The next is I show them how we're different. So in the mastermind, what we'll do is we'll introduce them to another member where they'll actually say, this is how I've gotten the most out of the mastermind. This is how, and then they can ask questions. So it, shows them how it's different. The next is like accumulate. So I live in Colorado, very high elevation. A lot of times when I have people out at our house for the digital agency experience, the first couple of days they're zapped. I mean, they're just out of it just because of the high altitude, low oxygen. And a lot of times you have to acclimate, to, the low oxygen. And especially like the first day we actually hike the mountain behind the house and you see people laying on the ground just because they're just, and they're in really good shape. And it's always, humbling to them.
Does that work the opposite way? And are you absolutely hyper when you're on lower ground?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. Awesome. I know. But
what's the altitude in meters? You're going to say it's in feet and I won't know what you're talking about.
What is feet? So I don't know in meters. At feet, we're 8,200.
I'll convert it.
Wow.
I'll convert it.
Sorry, man. Carry on.
Yeah.
That was a rude interruption of
it. But a lot of times as you bring on a client, you tell them your process one time. Okay. They're not going to remember that. So you have to accumulate them a couple times so they fully understand the process. Right. because they just want the results, but they have to understand you have a built process. They chose you for a reason. And if you go off your process, you're probably not going to deliver the results that you want. And then the other thing is show them a small win and celebrate. And this goes back to the foot in the door or the project. Stop leading with the big thing. We had, you guys are over in Europe and probably a lot of people are listening. We used to do everything. We were the agency of record for Lotus cars in North America until the Brits took it back. I remember when they reached out to us first, they wanted us to pitch the big thing. I said, no, we'll pitch the small thing. And we actually did that offer ladder, and that's how we won that deal. And then the last is they'll actually become a fan. So as you start showing them results, they'll actually be like, man, I trust you. Like, here's my problem, go do it, right? And that's why you want to do that, success ladder and show them results. Now, getting ready for questions. So I showed you the clarity system, the positioning system, the offering system. These are the most important systems, or the foundation. They're kind of the most boring, but you have to get those right before you move to the prospecting or sales. And I showed you a little bit of delivery. That's kind of why I highlighted that. But if you want to know the other systems, just go to jasonswenk.com and click on the playbook, and you'll see the other systems and make sure that you guys are there. So let's get into questions. Did I go quick enough?
That was awesome. Thank you, kind sir.
Okay.
So jasonswenk.com, guys, to get access to the playbook. Sorry, carry on, Peter.
I have a question. And my question is, I find it, generally speaking, I see people around and I find that they find it difficult sometimes to define what they do. Because when you say digital agency, what does a digital agency do as in Jason Swenk's world? Because when people say digital agency, they may mean that they build websites, in which case a lot of people don't go anywhere near Google Ads or marketing. Whereas for other people, a digital agency has to be a marketing agency. I know where I sit. Unless you're doing something, one of Lee's businesses was actually build themes. So in that case, that's a build job. It's not, you're not doing anything else. But if you build websites, how can you not do marketing as well? But I think that a lot of people and a lot of agencies have this sort of identity crisis. They don't actually know what they do. What do you think about that? I don't know if it was a very rambling question, actually.
No, I understand it. And almost all agencies position themselves wrong, right? And they refer to them as a digital agency. And so does their partners, their clients. They just say, oh yeah, check out this digital agency. And then people are like, well, how do I differentiate that? I reference a digital agency as performing a service that delivers a result with digital, okay? And then I tell people, like, for example, I worked with a client, they did websites for nonprofits, and they go, we're a digital agency that does websites for nonprofits. I'm like, that's horrible. Like, who's gonna actually, give you work? So we walked them through a positioning exercise that we do in our framework. And I said, what do your clients want? What do these nonprofits want? And he said, well, they want more members, they want more donors, they want more volunteers. I said, okay, great. Well, why do they want that? They're like, well, so we can spread our message. Like, okay, so why don't you say, we're an agency that works with nonprofits to help them get more members, donors, volunteers, so they can spread their message. It's a way better positioning than saying we're websites. So when I go to people and agencies, I'm like, you don't even have to refer to yourself as a digital agency. Start with, how do you help someone and who do you actually help? And then people will come to you. That's why I'm a big component behind niching down and really picking a specialization, whether it be on vertical or horizontal. And then you become the specialist rather than the generalist doctor, right? There's a reason why the brain surgeons or the heart surgeons make a lot of the money versus the general practitioner that's, checking your oil, right? Like, so another good reference.
You're full of these good references, and it makes me think of all those times when I first started our agency many years ago. We were so focused on making our agency look big and talking about us rather than talking about the problem. One of my favorite examples is that as we build our website, could you imagine if you went to a real estate agent and looked at their website and it says, "We put signs on your lawn and advertisements in the newspaper"? I really would not want to use that realtor to sell my house. If I really wanted to sell my house quickly and the website said, "We help you sell your home in 15 days or less." All right, you got me hooked now. That's a completely different offering, a completely different message. And I don't care if you're a one-man band or if you're a, $15 million a year company, etc. You are speaking to the problem, which is awesome. Now, with regards to positioning, Jason, I think that's obviously one of the key areas and niching down with regards to how to break through that glass ceiling. If you can imagine, there's a lot of my audience on the podcast who are making a decent living for themselves, and that's great. And they're not complaining about that, but they know there's another level. There's an invisible barrier that they feel they can't punch through. They've maybe plateaued with finances, as many people as they can employ. They probably still feel a little bit chained to the business. Maybe they've had a bit of freedom, but maybe they've spent, say, the last 2 or 3 years there. And that word they had depressed. They're depressed that they're not doing what they used to, but also depressed that they're not starting to move up. What would you say to encourage those people, and kind of what's the next step they need to start taking?
Yeah, and that goes back to the 3 stages, right? The solo, the team, and the leadership stage. And so you'll know when you're in the team stage, when you actually go, man, I'm so busy, which is a telltale sign, and I feel trapped. And I wish it would just go back to the fun stage, which is the solo stage. And you have a decision to make. You have a decision to make to say, well, I can go back, and then the whole business is depending on me, and I'm just a solo person. And it's a perfect, fine decision, right? You basically go back to a freelancer, and that works for some. The ones that want to push through, the way to do this is setting up the right systems in place, right? I already kind of hinted and showed you, like, I have to get clarity of where I'm going, right? Like when I walked you through, when I was going to think about closing or getting a job, I was in that team stage, okay? And the only way through was to figure out what's the right foundation of systems, and then what are the other systems in order to build a consistent pipeline, to convert most of the pipeline that was coming to make sure I'm delivering the right, and to make sure on the operations side that I have the right people making the right decisions. And when you do that, and a lot of times it starts with getting out of your own way. Also, too, here's a telltale sign that you're not charging enough is when you say, "I'm too busy." And so a lot of times when I look at what agencies are charging, they're not charging enough. And if they're not charging enough, that means they can't bring in the right people. If they can't bring in the right people, it's a constant battle. And then also, too, I also look if they don't have a good prospecting system to bring in and build that pipeline. Their business is based on word of mouth and referrals, which means you're going to keep getting business that's same or under. You'll never get more above it. And so a lot of times you have to make sure you have the right systems, make sure you charge the right amount. A lot of times when clients come, to us or mastermind members, like we ask, like, what's the value you deliver? And a lot of agencies don't know it. And I'm like, if you don't know it, how's your clients going to know it? So it starts with really setting up the right systems to figure out what's the value we do. Like I look at, we did pricing in 2 ways. We would do pricing first to find the floor. And we would say, all right, on average in the past 6 months of the results that we've gotten our clients, and you have to ask the right questions. If you're a creative or a PR or dev, like all that, you're like, well, we're not doing leads, so we can't really do it. I'm like, no, there's a value in there. You have to figure that out. What's the average results that my clients are getting? And then I divide it by 10. So when we do our mastermind calls, I always ask, what are your celebrations? And people are like, oh, we landed this account, or hey, I hired this president, or whatever it is. And so we're constantly taking those averages and what's that worth to them. And then we average it up and we divide it by 10, knowing that someone's going to get 10x on average. So that's the floor when you're an agency. Figure that out. The next is figuring out when you're chatting with the prospect, what is their expectation? I was talking to a company over the phone at the agency one day, and they go, and I just killed the call. Like I was just like crushing it. I was like, there's no way they're not going with me. And they brought me in, like we've all been there, right? Like the cocky son of a bitch. And go into the meeting in like this long boardroom, like just forever. It looked like an Inspector Gadget boardroom. And then all these people come in, and I present this proposal, and it was like for $20K for a website. At the time, that was big. And they kind of laughed at me. And I went back to the office and chatted with the team. They were like, how'd it go? I was like, well, they kind of laughed at me. They're like, well, who'd you meet with? And I was like, some company called Brookshire. They're like, Brookshire Hathaway? They're like, that's like one of the biggest companies in the world. And I was like, yeah, that's it. And I found out that you actually went with someone because they're expecting to pay over $300,000. So it's all about matching your expectations, right? Because I lost the deal because I wasn't charging enough. And I can promise you, a lot of you listening in or watching, you're losing business because you're too low. So I guess to answer your question, the easiest way is to charge more.
That's good. Thanks, man.
That's a fantastic story. That reminds me of one of the mindset barriers that I had to go through myself. You touched upon it briefly. It's like the chicken and the egg problem. In order to feel justified to charge more, you need to. So some people think that they need to have this team in place, but they can't hire without charging more. And that is one thing I would love to hear your opinion on is when do you know it's the right time to bring on the next person onto the team?
When you find the right person. I just don't want you to hire someone to hire someone. But it kind of comes back to, going back to, the first system that I talked about, clarity of figuring out where are we going? What are we actually good at? Like Dean Jackson, he always talks about like it's a weird analogy, like milking a cow. He goes, you're the cow, right? And your whole job is to produce the milk. No one else can produce the milk. But a lot of times as you grow your agency or grow your business, you're producing the milk, and then you're processing the cheese, and then you're distributing the cheese, and then you're selling the cheese, right? Like other people can do that. Yeah. And so you have to figure out through self-awareness what I'm really good at. So if you're good at sales, okay, we'll hire someone in operations, hire a PM. If you're really good at operations and project management, which I am not, I'm ADD if you can't tell, I need to focus on sales and bring on a PM or vice versa. So it just talks about, just figure it out. When you find the right person that matches your core belief, like what do you believe in? Like our core values have always matched mine, right? Like be resourceful, have fun. Obviously I was not ever corporate. And my dad always would go to me. He was a banker, always suit and tie.
I'm clearly corporate.
He'd like, like I'd never comb my hair, and then he'd be like, you're such a disappointment. But I win now. Right. So, but yeah, so, you just got to be self-aware and then make sure people believe in that. Now you're not going to interview them and say, are you resourceful? Are you creative? Like I'm asking questions to be like, like,
well, I work well as a team, and I work well alone.
Yeah, exactly. Like if they show up in a suit and tie, usually that's a telltale sign they're not going to get along with us.
I'm a proactive team player.
If it sounds like the typical BS,
I can learn quickly and on my own.
Yeah. How do you go about the money aspect of hiring? Like, would you wait until you have the budget to hire, or do you hire and trust and that you bring in the money to pay the wages?
Well, a lot of times, let's say someone's going to bring on an employee for 50,000 pounds, right? So they think automatically, I need 50,000 pounds in order to pay this person, but you're going to pay them on a monthly basis. So the most you're going to lose is what, 4,500 pounds or like I'm willing to take that test. So even if you have to take a small loan, your best investment is in yourself. Because you control it versus putting it into the stock market or investing it somewhere else. Bitcoin. So I would say bring them on whenever you find the right person because if you find the right person, they're going to accelerate your growth. Yeah. But if you hire your twin, and you're just two visionaries. You're going to just talk about ideas and never execute.
I remember I didn't have enough money to hire the right person, but I found them. So I figured I would skip my salary if I had to, but they were already earning 4 times their salary within 3 months of joining the company. So they were earning money and paying my salary as well. It was insane. Sorry, Peach, I think you got a question there.
No. Wait, super interesting. That's amazing. That's a result. No.
Sorry, I
yeah,
was on
my
mute.
question was, no, that's all right. My next question, I was interested, I sort of pricked my ears up when you said earlier that you would go looking for companies that were spending a lot of money on Google Ads. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting, because I think that another sort of eternal issue for a lot of smaller agencies is how to find clients, because also when you niche, one of the aspects of niching could be that, for instance, you go for local, geographical niching or things like that. So really interesting. What methods would you recommend to go look for clients? Because I suppose that's a good idea. Go look at who's spending way too much money on ads and probably not getting enough results. But also, I suppose at that point, you need to know how to approach them, because you don't want you don't want to go to people and say, hey, you're doing it wrong, because clearly that would not go down well.
Mm.
So I guess there's 2 questions then. One is what methods can there be to go and look for clients, and 2, how to approach them, because it's cold calling, isn't it? In a way.
It's sort of. Yeah, it is. I mean, so like in our sales system in the playbook, I'll talk about kind of 3 channels, right? Because it's kind of like a 3-legged stool. The 3-legged stool will stand, but a 1-legged stool, you have to really if it's slippery, you're going to fall on your ass, right? And a lot of people just depend on one channel, whether it be like referral channel. And I don't look at a referral as a channel either. So I break it down into 3 channels: inbound channel, outbound channel, and a strategic partnership channel. And I'll define kind of the inbound channel, which would be, that's what we're doing here. We're creating rich media content that is for a particular audience that if they find value in it, they'll probably want to engage with you, right? Or they'll listen to other content, or they'll tell other people. And so you have to think about that channel. So if you're not developing rich media content and thinking about how can you get that in front of your audience, you're missing out. The next channel is strategic partnership channel. Who else are going after your audience? And this is why, I walked you through some of the systems in the very beginning of figuring out, I have to have clarity of who I'm going after, or going after strategic partnerships is going to be very hard if you're going after all of business. So if you think of what associations are my audience in, we have a mastermind member that goes after landscapers. So he goes after those associations and sees how can he add value to them, right? You got to make deposits before you make withdrawals. I have so many people that reach out to me and go, hey, you help agency owners all over the world. You have the biggest list. I want to pay you this in order to I want you to send out this email and I'll pay you this commission. I'm like, no. But if they actually reach out and they help and I can see it's genuine, they don't expect anything back, I'll do anything for them. All right. And so figure out the associations, the technologies they use. Back in the day, we were one of the ones to first develop a CMS system or email marketing system in e-commerce. We were just too stupid to turn it into SaaS. It'd be a whole different conversation, right? It was like install only every time. No. Oh God, because clients, it's my client's fault because they were always demanding work. Damn clients. But there was a company called Sitefinity and a small company called Microsoft that developed CMSs. And at the time, we could customize the crap out of those and make them look good. So it was a really good strategic partnership where 2 + 2 = 8. Right. And so that's how we got a lot of clients like LegalZoom, like Hitachi Power Tools. And because of these relationships, And then the last one is an outbound channel, like what you were talking about. And you still have to have, like, a good exercise for everyone is think about your dream 100 or even dream 20 clients that you want, that you can actually help out now. Not your, pipe dream client that you can't help yet now. Like, what's one you can deliver amazing results? Come up with that, and then start figuring out a strategy to reach out to them. And, one of the strategies could be reaching out to them to on Loom video, say, hey, I went to your website, rather than saying, like you said, hey, your website sucks and you're an idiot. Do you want help? I get that email all the time.
Oh, doesn't that work?
Yeah, it works. It works to get the finger, right? But rather than, why don't you say, hey, I went to your website and noticed there's an opportunity that I wanted to make you aware of. And this is a personalized Loom video. And then it shows there on the back. Be like, let me know if you'd like to jump on a call for 10 minutes. I'll share the opportunity with you that you could go do yourself. If not, I hope, good, have a good day. Or a lot of times, a lot of my mastermind members, if you guys don't have a podcast, you're missing out. I was speaking in Manhattan to about 850 agencies before COVID, when we can actually meet in person, even though I'm an introvert. Like, I kind of miss people, which is kind of weird. That's kind of why I live in the mountains. But,
same here.
But I said, how many people have a podcast? And about like 8 people raised their hands out of 850 of the most innovative people. And I said, oh my God, you guys are missing out on a huge opportunity, because it actually solves all 3 channels. We have mastermind members that reach out to their perfect ideal client and say, hey, would you like to come on the podcast? I'd love to highlight you. And then they get a relationship with them, and almost all, about 50% of the time, they actually close them into clients. They also create amazing content, and they build strategic reliances. So, to answer your question, a podcast would solve all that.
Awesome. Oh, that's really good. I have a podcast.
I feel like you're talking to me directly, because I've been, yeah, you win, Lee. But I feel like this was, I was like, he's talking to me directly, because I've had this, I basically have everything I need for the podcast, and I'm still dithering.
And
so thank you.
This is my friend shirt. Look, just read it.
Yes.
Yeah. Version done. Definitely better than version done.
We've been encouraging her, haven't we, Anne, to just get started. We interrupt this live broadcast with a message. Did you know there is the agency partner program from Cloudways? You can check it out on this exceptionally easy to remember URL, which we are going to change, I promise you. But for now, head on over to cloudways.com/en/agency-partner-program.php. But the reason why you should enter all of that into your browser, but I will put a link in Facebook for you, so you can just go ahead and click on that, is you can be part of a very special club and join us inside the agency partner program, where you might get access to swag and other benefits, and also access to awesome content like this. I'm now going to shut up and hand over to Peacher. I believe you've got a question lined up for our good Jason. Did you like that ad? That was pretty cool.
That is no small URL. that is the longest URL.
Just go look at that again.
Remember. I mean, come on. There's a thing called redirects.
It's kind of funny. I like it. Anyway, sorry, Peacher.
It is. It's great. I mean, as remembering the URL is part of the test that you need to pass in order to work out whether you are a good enough member of the agency partnership program. But on the agency partnership program, I've led the UX project for it, and it's really absolutely brilliant. It's like you are spending less money to get a lot more. I mean, it's extraordinarily great. So I really recommend that you go check it out. Then my other question is a little bit, it's a question that I'm sure you've heard so many times, Jason, but I'm going to ask it again, because I bet that there are people that need to hear it again. And it's usually a normal reaction to the niching down thing, that everybody who knows, their onions will always say niche down, niche down, niche down. And there are many, many ways that you can niche down. But you mentioned someone who works mainly with landscapers. And a question that I hear all the time is, yeah, but if I live, if I work for all the landscapers in my city or in my region, will I not end up either working for two competitors or just repeating always the same formula, in which case it's not helpful anymore? So what would you say to this?
Well, so I think they're thinking small. Like when I say niche down, I'm talking about your marketing to that niche. So you resonate with but you still can take on, like Jack, he still takes on work for movie theaters or other people, right? Like, they listen to the show, they listen to the stuff. He does that. Now, some services, like SEO, one of our members, Chris Dwyer with rankings.io, great website, does amazing work. He just goes after personal injury attorneys. Okay. Personal injury attorneys. And so what he'll do is he'll do exclusivity for a city with a radius, but that actually gets more demand. And so what we've done in the past, let's say, remember we took on, in the airport, you go in parking and then you take those buses. There was a bus, the company that did the buses, the custom buses, we had a client, they would pay us like $10,000 a month. Well, I remember the biggest one came to us. It was like, hey, I want you to do X, and they were willing to pay us $50,000. So then I had to make a decision and go, well, which one? Or can I put a different team on it so then they don't see, and segment it? But the people that have a hard time with niching down, it's because I think they look at the bigger guys and they look at, and it goes back to what I said in the beginning, they go, well, the bigger guys are doing it. Well, yeah, but that's not how they started. Use Facebook as an example. Before Facebook came out, MySpace was big. I'm dating ourselves, right? And so if Facebook came out going after everyone like MySpace, they probably wouldn't be Facebook. We would have never heard of them. But they said, I'm going to do Harvard and then Ivy League and then schools, high schools, and then ex-boyfriend and girlfriend stalking each other and grandmothers.
So true.
Right. And so as you dominate one niche, you can add on. So at our agency, what we did was we created different practice areas. And then we would have practice managers that would act as the mini CEO for that practice. So then we could do automotive, we could do higher education, we could do those others. But if you looked at us at our height, you would think, oh, well, they're going after everyone. But you didn't see how we actually got there.
Yeah. Also, I find that the fear around niching down comes from a sort of scarcity mentality that makes you think that there's not enough room, there's not enough work going around, and that's absolutely not true. And as you say, once you niche down, actually is when all sorts of opportunities will open up that you hadn't even thought about. So great. Really good examples. Thank you.
We have a mastermind member, Adam James. He lives in Boston, but I don't know, maybe all the Brits come over to Boston. I don't know, maybe, right? Because you were talking, Lee, you were doing that. Boston. But his niche is going after elderly home care in the UK. That is not a big market. That's like
you should introduce him to me, mate. I know a few of them.
Perfect. We'll chat after. Right? And so he goes after that niche, but he dominates it. So the smaller it is, like, it's not about the big audience. And you can always start small. Like everything big starts off small. So start there, and then you can grow other niches if you want. You can grow the fastest by getting really narrow.
Can be a big fish in a little pond. We do have one question that's come in from the community. This is the last question, folks. So sorry you're too late. This is, I think, is a misconception because we understand, Jason, you do have an agency. But he said, Jason, why did you sell your agency and didn't continue with it? Which you can put that right. Was there another stage after the leader stage that you mentioned earlier that you decided not to go for?
Yeah, why I sold it was I did it for 12 years and I thought, like everyone, the grass is greener on the other side. But I realized the grass is greener on the side you water, because I wanted to get into doing a product.
That's good.
And so I created an iPhone app that took pictures of everything you ate and gave you a visualization. And
isn't that called Instagram?
Well, no, it was originally called Chubby Busters, and then we changed it to Cold Busters. I hated it. I hated it. Closed it down. And it was the right offer. It was the right time. And then, and I thought I was going to get away from the agency space altogether. And I also said, I was like, oh, I'll never own it, an agency again. And then I said, well, that's all I ever known. And then I was like, well, my 2-year earnout or my 2-year non-compete was up. I'm going to do an agency again. But before then, I had agency owners reach out for help, and I enjoyed that. And then last year when we did Republics, I had the right team in place, that were going to be partners with us. And I said, why not jump into this agency and, let's see how big, let's see if we can go after the billion mark rather than, the mark we were at before. So that's what we're doing.
That's awesome. And I love that the grass is always greener on the side that you water. It's true, isn't it? I've so often thought, I don't want clients anymore. I don't want to run an agency anymore. We all go through those circles. So thanks, Dimitri, for that question, and great answer as well, Jason. So folks, we have now come into land, and to be honest, there are a lot of takeaways from this. And I'm just going to share a few that jumped out from me, and then we will say our goodbyes. And one of the best ones, one of my favorite, Jason, is to not hire your twin. Don't hire somebody who just does the same as you. Hire people who have amazing talents, but also tell them where you're headed. So tell them what the vision is. Another one was, big one here is, understand the financials. You really do need to understand your financials as a business. And I like this one, be Alfred. Be Alfred, be that trusted advisor. And Peter had asked the question about being an agency and what the difference is. Am I just an agency or a consultant? And actually, be Alfred, be someone of value to a niche audience, and it shouldn't actually matter how you label yourself. In fact, people don't care about that. They care about the results that you can provide for them. There was some good food for thought in there as well. This was one that I liked. Are you training your clients, or are they training you? There's a gif in my head of mind blown. And another one here as well, more food for thought. Remember, the client may experience buyer's remorse. And you were talking with Jason about giving people those wins early. So we're all dinging a bell. Yeah, 50K contract. And the client's like, crap, what have I done? So communicate with them, talk to them, assure them they've made the right decision, tell them your process, and show them you're doing the process that you're telling them, and give them those quick wins, and really look after them early on rather than just going for a bevy down at the pub, which is what we do here in the UK. I don't know what you guys do, sports bar or something. Don't know what America does. Last takeaway from me as well is explain that process quite a few times to acclimate. I think I don't even know how to say that word, acclimate your client. So that's, again, very, very important. I guess, Jason, kind of all along the way. So as you develop the relationship and do more and more with them, that's something that you still need to keep doing, is educating your client throughout the way. So thank you so much for your time. Remember, folks, if you want to connect with Jason, then you can go and connect with him over on jasonswenk.com. I highly recommend you check out his podcast and YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, hit the bell notification icon. That's what YouTubers say, because you need to get access to this young man's content. I would also recommend that you check out the playbook as well, so you can download the agency framework that you have there. So check that out. That's jasonswenk.com/playbook. Also, don't forget the agency partnership program with our really short URL that you can enjoy. There is a link in the comments. It's my new favorite joke. All that's left for us to do is to quickly go around the room to say how you can connect with each one of us, and then we shall do our awkward wave. So let's start with Pecha. How do we connect with you? Who's on mute? And she's panicking. Pecha! No! No pressure.
On mute.
All right, Jan, how do I connect with you?
Oh, it wasn't.
Pecha.
It wasn't on mute.
Right, Pecha.
It's like yes, Pete January. Please connect with me on my website, designforgeeks.com, or LinkedIn. Pete January. There's only one.
Awesome. There's only one. Jan, how do we connect with you?
Facebook group WP Mastery.
Sweet. Folks, you can connect with me over on agencytrailblazer.com. Jason, it's on your name tag.
It's on my name tag. And if you guys want the YouTube channel, go to swank.today. See, that's a short URL.
Oh.
Yeah, that is a cool URL.
Today.
I also have Swank it too. Swank.it too.
On that mic drop moment from the Swenk, we shall all say thank you
That
so
is
much,
cool.
everyone. We've had a great time. Jason, thank you so much for your time, for the value you've offered, for the stories, for everything. It's been a wonderful time. So all that's left for us to do is just to kind of awkward wave until I decide to hit end broadcast, which is oh, that's a nice wave. It's kind of like a.
Isn't that how the Queen does it?
Oh no,
Yeah.
she kind of does that. It's kind of more like that, isn't it? So, hello.
Okay.
One waving. Right. Okay, I'm
It's
going to hit.
more subdued.